webinar here. Oh, good. Okay. Yes, we can get going if you're good to go.
Okay. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. My name's Brandy. I'm the RMT, and I've been living and practicing massage therapy and acupuncture in rural Saskatchewan since 2004. If you're a part of my online yoga group, RMT Yoga, you already know that I love all things hydrotherapy, and I always encourage my colleagues and my clients and my students to seek out hydrotherapy as a modality to help themselves with their own well-being. Today, I'm pleased to have Jeanine Pennell. Is that how you pronounce your last name? Jeanine Pennell as my guest. Jeanine is the owner and operator of Stratera Therapies in Saskatoon. She's a registered massage therapist, and in her massage therapy clinic, she offers floating. Sometimes it's called float tanks, sometimes it's called sensory deprivation. Jeanine, I am so pleased and happy to have you here today to tap your expertise in the area of floating. And let's get started with the first question about how you got into floating. What's your personal experience there, and what moved it into, what brought you into massage therapy, and what brought in your love for floating?
Well, I have been practicing for 8 years now as an RMT. I've just always liked helping people and finding new ways to find different modalities to aid in that aspect is kind of where the float therapy came from too. I had tried a few times floating myself and really enjoyed it. And it's nice because it goes hand in hand with the massage. So you get like things loosen up a little bit more before the massage, or like you're a little bit more relaxed from a massage going into a float. So if you do before or after. So yeah, I don't know. We started out with massage with the clinic, and then later on we were moving to a new location. So we just decided maybe we should bring this in as an extra revenue and just a different service for people to try.
For sure. So when you brought it into your new clinic, was it a new thing for you that you bought in, kind of thinking business wise, or was it something that you had previous experience in yourself that you were like, oh, I really want to bring this in, and you had thought about it for a while?
I kind of dabbled on it, mostly just like the whole new experience with like learning how they work and all that. That was the biggest learning curve, but yeah, no, it was, there's only one other place at the time. So we're like, well, this might be a good opportunity. So yeah, jumped on.
So can you then, because obviously then it might have been a bit of a learning curve, learning about the benefits of floating and bringing it into your practice. What have you found? Did you have to take a course to implement it into your clinic at all, or was there any instruction? Did you have to research it yourself? What did it look like that way for you?
A lot of it was from experience. I am friends with somebody who used to work in that environment, so they kind of like gave me some ideas and information that way. But a lot of research, especially with like finding the right tanks to bring in, and like obviously how they work and like the mechanical part of things. So it was a lot of research that way, and like a lot of like learn as you go and trial and error, definitely. But yeah, no, it's been over a year now that we've been, I guess, like comfortable where we are. So yeah, it's been going pretty good with that.
Okay, so what are the benefits then for you as a massage therapist that you've noticed? With my yoga group, I particularly only teach registered massage therapists. And so we do it for ourselves and our own self-benefit. And I really do push a lot of hydrotherapy on my yoga group as massage therapists, because I've done a lot of floating and different hydrotherapy is my favorite. So I've done a lot of floating, but I've also done a lot of different modalities. I think there's a lot of benefit for floating particularly for massage therapists, in a few different ways. Of course, the high level of concentration of Epsom salts is one of the physical and chemical benefits. Can you expand on that area for us?
Yeah, that's biggest biggest effect on the body, obviously. There's like over 1,000 pounds of Epsom salts in there, so you really do absorb a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of absorption, I don't know, it kind of like people have different opinions about that, but there's no doubt about that it helps with, yeah, relaxation and like all that, like DOMs and stuff like that with core muscles.
I've certainly read not a large amount of studies, but I've read two studies particularly just that confirmed that the magnesium, particularly in Epsom salts, it is permeable through the skin and it does enter our body that way. I have also read things that say you're not really going to absorb too much magnesium. Your body will kind of know when to stop absorbing it. Does that seem to be consistent with what you would know?
Yeah, so there's a bit of sides to that. But yeah, definitely that's the biggest thing. And then sorry, what was the first question again?
Yeah, just if that's consistent, that kind of research to say that the magnesium is permeable to give us a chemical change in the muscle through the skin, particularly the magnesium in Epsom salts. And then as well, maybe the body doesn't, there's a theory that the body doesn't allow us to absorb too much. I don't know if it's true or not, but I just thought maybe you have some information about that as well.
It's not really something I'm too like in depth about, but I definitely am on the side of like, yes, I do believe that it is very permeable with all that. Yeah, the body just kind of takes what it needs, and it people do. It was kind of like being a Manitou. Like people do sometimes leave feeling a little bit of detox too. It's not really one of the major things that we like tell people that it does, just because it's kind of an iffy point, but yeah. Definitely can bring out a lot of like detox in the body just from the magnesium and all that. You tend to want to drink a lot of water afterwards, so that can flush things out as well. Yeah, that's the biggest point. Also with like joint decompression, just because of the high amount of salt in there, it makes you completely buoyant. So yeah, that's the other biggest thing that we try to promote, especially with arthritis and people who have a lot of immobility issues. Yeah, that's the nice thing. Like there's been some people who've had issues with like not being able to lift up their arms or something like that. And when they're in the tank, it's like they don't have to try.
Yeah.
And it just makes it weightless, so then they can we've seen a lot of progress from that.
What do you think in terms of your clients coming in? I'm kind of skipping around a little bit here on the questions that I sent you, but just kind of leading into that, working with your clients particularly, and you've got a good massage clientele. Have you seen them integrating a lot of float therapy into, anyone who would be kind of on a regular, consistent massage schedule? Are they also integrating the float therapy, or is it kind of all over the place? I guess it would depend on person to person, how they go. And what would you recommend, particularly just for someone, general well-being, they're on a regular massage cycle, they're coming in anyway. What's kind of your general well-being schedule that you would recommend for floating?
Like it can be a little sporadic with people coming in. It also depends on like time frame, like if people even have time to spend like 3 hours here. That's the thing. But I generally say like kind of like massage, like you want to keep it on a regular basis, like maintenance and stuff like that. So like some people will come once a month. I've had people come like once a week even. And then like with massage, some people like to do the float before massage every time they come in. So we do try to encourage a regular routine of things. But again, it comes down to what they have time for. And that's the biggest thing.
So when I floated, and you might only be able to answer this in regards to the clients that you see after your float for a massage, but I know in my experience with floating quite a bit, I've done quite a bit of it.
Yeah.
A lot of people that I've talked with, some people almost have like a meditative experience floating. Some people will have, emotional release while floating. Some people with chronic pain, the pain will go up and then go down. There's a lot of those kinds of psychosomatic, I don't know if I want to say symptoms, but a lot of psychosomatic events that tend to come around for probably not everybody, but for a lot of people. Do you see that a lot in your clients? Do they talk to you about it? What do you think's going on there?
There are some who will, they will kind of elaborate on things, but it all depends. Like sometimes people seem a bit rushed after, but no, we have had a lot where they're like, oh, I've been having such a hard time sleeping, and like I actually fell asleep in there, and like it felt like super refreshing. Some have mentioned like they do have that meditative state that they get into. Especially it's interesting because some people will come in thinking like, oh, I can't spend that much time alone with my thoughts, and then as soon as you know it, they're falling asleep, or like they actually did go into a deep like state of like I don't even know what meditative state, I guess you'd call it, but that portion between where you're about to fall asleep versus like deep relaxation kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so it is really interesting what people do grasp out of it. And then with the what part did you say? Emotional releases. That can definitely happen, especially if you are holding a lot of tension somewhere in your body, and then that finally lets go, and then there has been some reports about they felt like a deep relief, like all of a sudden. It's like, oh wow, the pain went away for like this whole period of time. So those are the people that tend to want to come back and experience that some more.
For sure. So as a therapist, then let's just say you have someone, they go for a float, they get some good positive results emotionally, physically from the float, and then they're on your table, 15 minutes after your float. Do you notice anything particular about the tissue, like just tissue texture? I guess it's not guaranteed that if someone, goes for a float that they're going to have an amazing massage, experience. It probably varies just like any other regular massage experience for you. But are there some commonalities that you notice with your floating clients who come for treatment afterwards, like in the tissue or in their things like emotional release and tissue texture, things like that? Again, inflammation, anything like that?
I'd say for the most part, inflammation, I don't really notice a whole lot of that. Like that, it seems to be like warm, but not like, like things are warmed up, but not inflamed. If that makes sense. Things feel a lot more pliable and like easier to get into tough spots. I definitely suggest people do try the floating before, because it does make our job easier.
For sure.
They often give the expression that they feel like a noodle walking out.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, overall it feels a lot more like pliable is the best word I can use to describe.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Like there's probably already been some release go on
Yeah.
and you don't have to work as hard, which is great. Right?
Yeah. Things are warmed up and ready to go.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Um, with regards again, this is from my own personal experience floating, and you might, have some kind of things to say about this. Most of my floats, I've been able to get into that state that we were talking about, almost between sleeping and deep relaxation, maybe a
Yeah.
meditative type of state. Sometimes I have fallen asleep. There was a period of time there, though, that I would just get incredibly nauseated. And I had, symptoms that people might think, oh, that's a very negative symptom. You should stop.
Yeah.
Right. But I didn't necessarily think that I'm not someone who always believes that you need to plow through every negative symptom, but I'm not someone who always believes that you need to stop as soon as there's a negative symptom.
Yeah.
Do we know what would cause that I guess there could be a lot of different causes to something like nausea. It could even be a sphenoid issue, things releasing. What happens for you when you have a client who has maybe a symptom that they would describe as negative? Where do you go from there? How do you assess if they should maybe take a break from floating or continue it and plow through it? It's probably pretty individual for people. Where do you start with that?
Um, yeah, the nausea can definitely happen, along with dizziness. And like oftentimes it can be from your neck positioning, especially if you have like a lot of like neck forward posture. Just because like if you don't use the neck support that we provide, sometimes it can just be a little bit uncomfortable and your spine can be in a different position that's not used to. So yeah, people have had experience with that. So we do encourage them to try using we call them neck or head halos, just so that it does bring that comfort. And then if they do get used to that later on, then they can try without again.
Yeah.
Like gauge how they're feeling. But yeah, that can definitely happen with that, especially if people have any vertigo issues or if they're diabetic too. That often happens. Which we do say if you have any medical conditions that are severe like that, if it's controlled, it should be okay, but definitely talk to your doctor before that happens.
Yeah.
Or and then yeah, it does depend on each person, but sometimes it can be the temperature in the room, like if it gets a little too humid for them. Some people are really sensitive to heat, so that has happened too. But we just kind of let people know if they want to come out, they can whenever they want to. Or if they need to like open the door to the pod, let some fresh air in, that can help as well. But yeah, some people do plow through and then just kind of go with it. But we do also let them know that if they have had enough, then they're welcome to come out whenever they want to. Like they don't have to stay in there.
For sure.
And definitely like, yeah, drinking lots of water afterwards helps all that too. So
what do you find people prefer? Because I've done floating in a pod, and I think that provides more sensory deprivation than floating in an open room with an open tank. But I don't necessarily know that one is particularly better than the other. Do people have a preference between like floating with an open room, open tank situation or in a pod? Or sometimes there's like almost, it can almost be like a small room instead of a pod type of situation. What do you have? And do people prefer, what do they prefer for you?
Well, we have two tanks here. So we have an open one, that one we can do couples floats in
Yeah.
as well. So that one's in a completely open room. It is like very close to being completely dark in the room, except like the exception of the door crack, but
Yeah.
it's still very close to having that complete experience. But we wanted to have that for an option, just so if people might be claustrophobic, that can be a good introductory to them. But we do have the closed pod too, where it's completely dark in there. There's no lights or anything. It again goes each preference to their own. I prefer the pods just because it is completely dark in there. Like, you get full experience. And then the open one, it's nice, but my own experience, I did try a couples one, and I definitely like being alone. But we do get a lot of couples that come in. It's a nice experience to share with each other, especially if it's a first time and they're nervous about it. It's good to have those options. But I'd say they're both on par with having the same effects that you'd get. Especially if you are looking for the complete experience, I would definitely try the pods. But that one's a little intimidating for some people.
How many treatments would you say if someone came into you and they said, I want to start using floating, or to see if I want to start using floating regularly, how many treatments would you think, like, okay, give it a good shot, come in for 3 treatments, 8 treatments, 12 treatments? Like, what would be, when people come in for acupuncture, lots of times, obviously depending on the situation, lots of times I'll tell them, 12 treatments before you even decide, 12 treatments before we get to a place where it's making the changes that you need. Sometimes it's 2 treatments, but for a lot of people, it's a consistent thing, especially if there's a chronic illness. What would you say, like, what's a good shot for you? What's a good try in terms of floating?
I'd definitely try more before you decide about it. Because like it can all depend like what kind of state somebody's in before they come in. Even like that might throw everything off, and you never know. It's like coming in for massages too. Like some people might not be in a good state and they don't really, I didn't really enjoy it too much, but the next time they come in, they're like, oh, it's great. Like, especially if there are like little things that we need to adjust for the float session too. That's also good, because then we could be like, hey, if you want to like try again, we can try and adjust this for you to make it more enjoyable for your experience. Or like, if they tried doing the pod first and then they're like, I think I want to try the open one next time. So like I definitely say try more than once. 3 times is a good goal too. So like I said, you could be in a different state each day or each time you come in. So it's even like what you eat beforehand can throw things off. So you never want to go off your first experience.
For sure. So take us through then the process. Like if you had a first time hydrotherapy floater come in, what are you going to tell them? For instance, like, what are you going to eat beforehand? What is the process going to look like physically, and like showering, then those kinds of things? What does the whole process look like for a first timer? What would you tell them?
Definitely stay away from caffeine beforehand. Don't come on a full belly. You'll hear a lot of gurgles. Those are the biggest things. Don't shave beforehand either. That will sting quite a bit. So we do have like a whole list of things like what not to do beforehand. Those are the biggest ones. And then, so we would go through everything like shower beforehand, like body wash and shampoo, rinse off really well. That's just to get all the oils and everything off your body and hair. And then we do have like earplugs to wear just to keep the solution out of your ears, especially if you do have like water gets into your ear canals a lot, and like people get swimmer's ears. That does happen. So that is a good thing to have. And then we have like makeup remover to remove everything. So you're really in a vulnerable state, but yeah, take everything off basically. We do have the Vaseline. So if you have any like cuts or any like open sores or anything, just to like when you're in a swimming pool, basically, just to add as a barrier. So we go through all that, and then yeah, the shower, what you can use for comfort, especially with like pregnant ladies, we have the option of having pool noodles. So if they want to like put something on under their legs, makes it a bit more comfortable if they have like sciatic issues. And then, yeah, we basically like, yeah, the music will come on that lets them know when session's over, and then they come out, get ready in the room. They don't have to go somewhere else to get ready. So it kind of makes it more comfortable for them. And then, yeah, they tell us about their experience.
For sure.
Yeah.
Okay. On a practical side of things, if someone wanted to introduce floating into their massage clinic or into their, holistic practice, what does that look like on a practical kind of thing? Do you build the things yourself? Obviously, a pod you would probably just order from a company. What does it look like in terms of space? I know that when you moved clinics, because I had actually, I'd been to your original clinic. That's okay. I'd been to your original clinic just as a client previously.
Okay.
And I know the building that you're in now, although I haven't visited it yet, but it's quite a bit larger. What are you looking at, investment wise, size of building? What do you need for drainage? What are the practical things that you really had to take care of to bring floating into your clinic that other therapists would have to consider?
Yes, that was that was a big project. Basically, you want to have like a really good hydrovac system because of all the humidity. It's a very salty environment, so you got to take that into consideration too. So yeah, there's a lot of we did a lot working with good people, good contractors, I guess. That was a big help. People who knew what they were doing. Yeah. Basically, yeah, we had to like take into consideration the size of the tanks. They have their own requirements for like what size of rooms you should have. Obviously, like a shower in the room, and then proper drainage for the showers and stuff, so you don't have water everywhere in the room. The tanks are pretty self-sufficient, so they don't require any plumbing like into city plumbing or anything like that. So they're their own unit. That was the biggest thing with having everything prepped before having the tanks come in. One of them we actually had to build around the tank because it was so big. So yeah, there's a lot of figuring out the size of everything, lighting, like how to get all the lighting going, so it's automatic, like motion, I guess. Yeah, like a good venting system so you don't get out too much humid, but the proper amount at the same time. Keeping the heat temperature regulated, that was a big one with the open tank. And then the pod, that one was a little bit easier just because everything's more enclosed and you don't have that extra evaporation happening outside. So yeah, those were the biggest things, just getting all the rooms set up. The amount of salt,
yeah,
if you can keep that somewhere, that's handy too. Yeah, I guess it all just kind of fell into place, but at the same time, we took our time dealing with everybody, and they were all great help with figuring that out, especially the manufacturers. They were really good with helping figure out what you actually need and proper. Yeah.
So what do you guys do personally at your clinic, I've seen different models for people to come and float, pay for an individual float, buy a package, memberships. What does it look like for you, or is it varied?
Um, we have a lot of people just coming in for singles floats. And then like we don't do memberships or anything like that, but we do have package deals if people want to purchase those. That way you can do it on a more regular basis and you're not like worrying about paying every time. We have a lot of people like buying them as gifts for people too, which is nice. Sorry, what was the original question?
just the structure of how you structure bringing people in for floats, if it is pay as you go or membership based, those kinds of things. Does that seem to be working well for you? I'm okay with membership based stuff, but then there's always it can be inconsistent in a time like a pandemic, which we've come through, but that would be something that's a little bit scary to me, investing a lot of money into tanks and things like that, and then relying on membership that probably may or may not be closed kind of thing. Was there any reason why you decided not to go with memberships, or you're just trying things out?
Partly because it comes down to like a financial thing too. Like you don't want to, like you said, like you have to get into a situation where all of a sudden you have to close down and people are like, well, what about this? I paid for all this. So like financially it makes more sense to keep things as a like pay as you come in kind of thing. The package deals aren't like, they're not like how do you say it? Like you're not bound to it as much. Like, of course, use it yourself. It just makes it easier rather than giving it to other people to use. It's easier for us to keep track of, so that's why we keep it at just the package deals. Memberships, I feel like they just get a little bit too confusing right now to deal with. So that's kind of why we stayed away from those. And yeah, I don't know. It's just nicer having everybody kind of just pay as you come in. It's more simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really found for myself, I think, just as an RMT and looking at investing in my own health and wellness and in longevity of my career, because I've been treating now since 2004, I really think, particularly as practitioners, it's important for us to do things like this to keep up our own mental and physical well-being. And I definitely think that hydrotherapy, like floating, sauna, all the different varieties, even the things that we can do at home, can make such an impact in our own aches and pains and in the longevity of our career. It's something that I implement, like I've said, and that I really encourage others to implement. A lot of that too is because of the cost factor. And even floating, if you think of it as treatment, generally sessions are going to be cheaper than massage therapy. So if you're already, as a massage therapist getting a lot of massage and you want to implement more things, generally hour by hour, it is cheaper. You can technically in Saskatchewan, through like my accountant, absolutely is like, this is a business expense. You can write it off as a business expense, even just going for a flotation therapy. I was talking to a RMT in Ontario, and he teaches a class for Russian sauna. And as an RMT, he was told by his insurance that he can actually bill his sauna sessions out as massage therapy because hydrotherapy is part of our scope of what we do. Do you know, like in Saskatchewan, are you allowed to do that? He said you'd have to, be certified to do that kind of thing, like because we're RMTs and it's under our scope,
Yeah.
if we bring in, you know, a flotation or a sauna or something like that, can you bill that out as massage therapy for insurance purposes, or is it kind of gray here or not at all?
I do know with the sauna factor, because I did have an infrared sauna at one point at my previous location. So as long as they had the majority of the set that came in for massage, they could claim the whole thing as a massage, basically, and put that under their insurance. But with the floats, because they are a separate service altogether, I should actually look into that if they do book in like a massage and a float in the same day. But with the floats, they aren't covered under insurance as long as you have, if you have like a health spending account with your insurance company, then you can claim them under that. But
so it's probably going to be like company by company.
Yeah, definitely. I also have heard like seniors have told me that they keep everything for health related stuff and then they claim it with income tax and stuff. So I don't know like how much you need to like accumulate in order to write that off. But yeah, no, that is interesting. I should actually look into if they can do it in the same day. Cause yeah, if you're doing like an hour massage and an hour float, then technically you should be able to bill it under the same thing. But
yeah,
we're not a very progressive province right now, but with all that, I know like BC, they're a little bit more lenient with claiming that kind of like the float therapy and all that. Yeah, hopefully at one point we get there.
For sure. Okay. Where can other massage therapists follow you? Do you do social media? What do you do?
Yeah, I do Instagram, make a lot of TikTok videos, and yeah, Facebook, and it's all up there. Yeah, we stay pretty updated with everything and make lots of new content. So that's always up and going.
Awesome.
So yeah, just Stratera Therapies. You should be able to find everything.
And I'll link everything down below wherever I post to make sure that people can follow you. And I'll get you to email me that information and I'll make sure to link it all down below so it's all there for people. Yeah. Well, I want to be very mindful of your time. Thank you so much for talking to me today and the whole interview. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for interviewing us.
Absolutely.